It is Sunday, the 1st of April, outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and I'm just starting up my Easter Sunday 2018 April Fool's Day protest against utterly foolish Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse, which includes, but is not limited to, such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, and basically protesting against all manner of other stunningly foolish behavior on the part of Unitarian Universalist fools. We got a chalk slogan down here saying, "Unitarian fools cover up and deny clergy abuse," and you can be absolutely certain that the Unitarians who actually do cover up and deny clergy abuse, and there's a lot of them, are fools, total fools, because the evidence is available publicly that the Unitarian Universalist Association and literally hundreds of Unitarian Universalist congregations have been affected by clergy abuse of one kind or another. Just in terms of clergy sexual abuse, which is by no means the only form of sexual abuse, an absolute minimum of 400 Unitarian Universalist congregations have been affected by clergy sexual misconduct of one kind or another, and it's more like 2/3 in terms of those that have actually had a complaint brought. And when it gets right down to it, it's probably pretty well all of them at some time or another over the now more than 50 years span of the Unitarian Universalist Association's existence. But one of the most stunning, well, I should say, let's say two of the most stunningly foolish efforts to cover up and deny clergy abuse involve the Unitarian Universalist Association hiring Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors, defamation lawyer Maître Marc-André Coulombe, to falsely accuse me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel for allegedly making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. The only problem with that accusation is that my blog posts about Unitarian Universalist ministers, to say nothing of Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers and lay leaders, who are guilty of committing such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, are not unfounded at all. They are actually very well founded on publicly available news reports about Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell being convicted of the forcible rape and indeed the unnatural rape of teenage Tibetan refugees who he lured away from their families in India with promises of a better life in America. They are founded on newspaper reports about First Parish Norwell parishioner Richard Buell being charged, tried, and convicted of the forcible rape, again, of preteen girls, including a female family member who was probably a granddaughter or grandniece when one looks at the age difference between Richard Buell and his victims. He was in his mid-50s at the times that the rapes took place, and his victims were no older than 12 years old, somewhere between 6 and 12 years old. And there's also evidence that Richard Buell previously raped other members of his family, but that the statutes of limitations passed, so it was not possible to have him charged with those earlier rapes. In any case, there's also Stephen Craig Bullite, Unitarian Universalist religious educator, also known as a Sunday school teacher out in Oregon, who was charged, tried, and convicted of raping a young boy that he adopted, presumably for the purposes of a sex slave. And here comes David Rollert, one of the people, many people, who's totally complicit in Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse of all kinds, but including pedophilia and rape.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, Mr. Complicit in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up and denial. Oh yeah, just pretend it's not true. Yeah, wallow in psychological denial, willful ignorance, be my guest. Just do some fact-checking one day, David. Of course, it's already a few years too late. So that's David Rollert, in total denial of the fact that he and every other Montreal Unitarian who not only does absolutely nothing to speak out against the Unitarian Universalist Association's false blasphemous libel accusation against me, which seeks to conceal pedophilia and rape, but also actively try to shut down my protest against Unitarian clergy abuse, is complicit. They're all complicit. You know, they may not be guilty of clergy abuse themselves, but they are certainly helping to keep it hidden from the public as much as they can. David Rollert has erased my chalk slogans, which protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and cover-up and denial thereof. That's an active participation in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up and denial. So that is a fact that's easily provable. Hey Dave, take all the pictures you want and post them to YouTube and Facebook. I'd be only too happy to see them. So David's apparently fiddling with a camera, which is fine by me. I mean, I don't mind if Montreal Unitarians take pictures of this protest or film it. It looks like he's calling the police. He's got his phone out. So we shall see what comes of that. I mean, he could be texting or phoning someone else, but you know, chances are pretty good he's trying to get the police to come here and find some excuse to shut down my protest. In any case, we will continue the protest here. And unfortunately, it's quite windy. There's gusts of wind that keep blowing down my freestanding picket signs, so I basically put them away. But this is the second of two picket signs. The first one says Unitarian Universalist Misuse Blasphemy Law 2, cover up and deny pedophilia and rape. 100% truthful statement, but it's by no means the only way that Unitarian Universalists cover up and deny clergy abuse, which includes pedophilia and rape. Speaking of pedophilia, there's also Reverend Ron Robinson, also known as Reverend Ronald Eugene Robinson, a Christian Unitarian Universalist who last year, if I'm not mistaken, or possibly the year before, was charged with basically child pornography offenses, which included being in live chat rooms viewing sexual abuse of children. And he is known to have expressed his desire to rape and kill children. He pleaded guilty, so there was no trial to get into all the gory details. Ronald Eugene Robinson pleaded guilty, perhaps to ensure that all the gory details didn't come out in sworn testimony in court. And these people that I'm naming, these are just the tip of the iceberg. You can be sure that there are others. And you can also be sure that for every case where a Unitarian Universalist minister or a Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teacher was charged, tried, and convicted, of rape and or pedophilia, that there are plenty of other cases that never made it to the courtroom, never even made it to the police. You know, people kept quiet or were kept quiet. The Unitarian Universalist Association had a long habit of demanding that clergy abuse complainants must sign confidentiality agreements before they even considered their complaint. So many people were silenced by this abusive misuse of confidentiality agreements, also known as non-disclosure agreements. Anyway, as I said, you know, my theme today, because it's April Fool's Day, is Unitarian Universalist fools. Unitarian Universalist fools who cover up and deny clergy abuse, but other Unitarian Universalist fools as well. You know, fools who engage in anti-religious intolerance and bigotry, anti-Christian intolerance and bigotry, anti-Catholic intolerance and bigotry in what was once a Christian church, but has basically become overrun by atheists in the 20th and 21st centuries. You know, Unitarian Universalism is a mishmash now of all kinds of beliefs, but the fact of the matter is that many Unitarian Universalist congregations are pretty well dominated by atheists, and I'm not saying all of the atheists are intolerant and bigoted, but a subset of them are, and they make Unitarian Universalist churches very unwelcoming places for God-believing people in general and Christians in particular. That may have subsided somewhat in the last few decades. It was certainly very strong in the mid to late 20th century. Is there a fire alarm going on? I hear an alarm going off in the church, so I don't know what that's all about. In any case, getting back to the atheist bigotry, you know, there may be less of it than there has been in the past, but it still exists. It's still there. It may have been toned down somewhat, but it's still happening and making God-believing people not happy. Well, April Fool's Day, looks like they got a fire alarm here. That's good. We can get people out to see the picket signs. So, yeah, you got a whole crowd of people here. I think what I'm going to do, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's like only about 15 people or something. I'm going to maybe switch up my picket sign so they can see whoops-a-daisy. Okay, so here comes another person. So, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, a dozen or so people. Look, we're still well before the services started, and some people may have gone out the back door, but not a big turnout, really. It's not like, oh, here comes John Inder, one of the people who is most involved in the Unitarian Church of Montreal's efforts to shut down my protest. So, free spirit, yep, a real free spirit. Oh, it's always a good morning when I'm accused of blasphemy by atheist Unitarians. It's always a good morning when I can protest after you idiots tried to shut down my protest with the misuse of the SPVM and the criminal justice system. Well done, John Inder and Sue Montgomery. Not to mention Diane Rollert and other Montreal Unitarians who misuse the criminal justice system to shut down peaceful public protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, which includes pedophilia and rape, as you're well aware now. Okay, so that's John Inder, former president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, longtime president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. He was directly responsible for kicking me out of the church back in the the late 90s, and he's been responsible for numerous calls to the SPVM trying to shut down my protest. He has thrown my picket signs at me, so that's assault, although I wasn't hurt. But they did hit me. No, unfortunately, John Inder is deeply implicated in the local efforts of the Unitarian Church to force an end to my protest and to silence me generally. I tried to resolve issues within the church, using letters of grievance and so on. And basically, John Inder and other Montreal Unitarians thought it'd be a really good idea to kick me out of the church for, trying to resolve things peacefully with letters of grievance. So there's a police car pulling into the Vendôme metro station up ahead there. We'll see if the police show up. I have a feeling that after the last ridiculous shenanigans of Sue Montgomery on St. Patrick's Sunday, March 18th, that the SPVM will be somewhat reluctant to answer bullshit calls from Montreal Unitarians complaining about my protest outside the church. The two police officers who came on March 18th after Sue Montgomery tried to provoke me into breaking court conditions that are imposed on me as a result of her ludicrous criminal harassment accusation against me, handled it very professionally, and I have no complaints about how they handled it. They investigated whether or not I was breaking my conditions. They came to the conclusion that I wasn't, which I believe is the correct conclusion, and I was let go. And so I went and I attended the St. Patrick's Day parade. Looks like that honk might have been for me. I do get the occasional honk of support from people. I may actually get some more support from people as a result of